Good afternoon and welcome to our regular full board meeting for LAVTA. If we can all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm a little bit ahead of you guys. All right, so we will go ahead and we can please take roll.
Yes, do we need to do the remote participation first?
We can roll and do it.
Okay, Vice Chair Branning.
Here.
Director Brown.
Here.
Director Howard.
Present.
Director Josie.
Here.
Director Kick is absent. Director Testa.
Sure.
And Chair Hernandez.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, so now I will go ahead and Board Secretary, did you receive any notification or request for virtual meeting participation from any members of the board?
Yes, Chair Carla Brown notified staff that she has a need to participate remotely for just cause under AB 2449 and the Brown Act.
Okay, thank you, Board Secretary Carla Brown. There are a few legal requirements that we need to participate remotely for just cause. We have prepared 3 questions to address the requirements that we ask that you answer. Describe the general circumstances relating to the need to participate remotely.
I'm on city business.
All right, and then please confirm that you will have an audio and a video throughout the meeting.
Yes.
And then lastly, please disclose if there are any individuals over the age of 18 present in the room, and if so, the general nature of the relationship with you.
There are no one over 18 in the room with me or under 18, except me.
Over 18. I hope it's fine. All right, thank you. All right, I think that's all we need.
We do.
Okay, so we'll have to take a,
You don't have to vote.
we don't, we do not.
It's only when it's an emergency.
Okay,
Talk to you.
so we will go ahead and move on to our item number 3, which is open to the public. Members of the audience may address the board of the directors on any matter within the general subject matter jurisdiction of the LAVTA board of directors. Unless members of the audience submit speaker forms before the start of the meeting requesting to address the board on specific items on the agenda, all comments must be made during the item of the business. Speaker cards are available at the entrance. Do we have any public comment?
So we have no attendees in this meeting and I did not receive any public comment.
Okay, not seeing any public comment at this time. We'll go ahead and go to item number 4, which is the March Tri-Valley Accessible Advisory Committee minutes.
Great, and our chair, Zach Silva, will be joining us to present the minutes.
Perfect.
Good afternoon, Board of Directors. The TAC had its last meeting on Wednesday, March 6th. At that meeting, we had staff updates on annual dollar ride satisfaction survey, LAVTA Fair Transit Program plan submission, TAC improvements for terms beginning in fiscal year 25, and then cap on TNC rides updates for Go Tri-Valley. We also had a PAPCO member present about the January 22nd meeting, which included updates on mid-year reports and PAPCO getting ready for grant program, fair transit program plan reviews. And lastly, we had several committee members share similar bus stop issues concerning drop-offs on grass, which goes to curb. Staff said they will.
What was the last one?
Just a couple reports from riders on the committee sharing just different bus, either pulling up where the exit was by grass or distance from the curb.
Oh, okay.
So the staff's gonna look into just how close to parking the bus is to the curb and pulling.
Got it. Right. Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. So our item number 5 is our consent agenda. Would any of the board members like to have any questions on any of our consent items?
I'll move approval of the consent. I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion in a second. Can you please take the roll of the vote?
Vice Chair Branning.
Aye.
Director Brown.
Aye.
Director Howard.
Aye.
Director Josie.
Aye.
Director Kick is absent. Director Testa.
Aye.
And Chair Hernandez.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And Our next item is number 6, which is the long-range transit plan. Give it by Christie.
Good afternoon, Chair Hernandez and board members. Nice to see you all. Happy April 1st. I don't have an April Fool's Day trick for you, although I thought maybe that would be funny. If you could pull up the slides, please. Thomas Whitman, who is a principal with Nelson Nygaard, will be joining me today. I will be walking you through the presentation, and Thomas is available to answer any questions. This is an update on your 2023 to 2034 long-range transit plan. For our projects and services committee members, this will be a duplicative presentation since you have received this information the past 2 meetings. So the projects and services committee approved sending this to the board at the March committee. So next slide, please. For today's discussion, I wanted to spend just one slide talking about what is the long-range plan, what is it intended to do, and then really get into the guts of the document, including what data points did we analyze and pull from to come up with our demographic analysis, what planning documents did we review, how did we incorporate the Wheels in Motion network changes that just went into effect a week and a half ago. And then the exciting part is to talk to you about what our network could look like in 2034, really to respond to the changing travel patterns, the growth that's occurring in the Tri-Valley, and to better position us for Valley Link. And then this is a 10-year plan, but this is something we will iterate on, and implement when opportunities present themselves. So there are some near-term opportunities I wanted to brief you on. So our next slide, please. So many a moon ago, almost 5 years ago, LAVTA awarded a multi-scope planning contract to develop our short and long range transit plan. This was partially funded by an Alameda CTC grant to follow up on our 2016 comprehensive operational analysis, which was the Wheels Forward plan that really modified our network in 2016. So the SRTP is a regularly required planning document. We are required to submit this every 3 years to MTC. And when COVID hit, things got delayed, and that was completely understandable. So the original SRTP timeline was a bit delayed. However, we completed that shortly before I started here. So in fall 2022, the board adopted the SRTP, and the SRTP was largely cost constrained. It wasn't a visionary document. There were budget numbers that we needed to align our service levels with. After the board adopted the short range transit plan, we launched the long range plan, which started with a board workshop in October of 22. And then since then, the consultant team and staff have been working on gathering stakeholder feedback in the spring and summer. And then we learned about the BART schedule change, the Wheels in Motion. So that's just some context as to how we got here. Next slide, please. Okay, so the long range plan is not a required document. It is a best practice, but it is not statutorily required. MTC does not require us to do this plan, but it is the best practice. It does allow us to synthesize several planning efforts into one document, including the short range transit plan and all of the work that went into the Wheels in Motion plan. The LRTP is also instrumental in our ability to be competitive for grants, because it does have a growth scenario where we show what is our blue sky vision? What could we do if money was no option? What would the lines on the map look like? Again, it is cost unconstrained. It gets refined as time goes on. You have your long range plan, and then you have your short range plan, and then you have your service planning. So while we have a visionary unfunded network that we're presenting for you for your endorsement today, rest assured this gets iterated as time moves on, and it does need to align with our budget. And also what's key is that LRTP is not our marching orders. It does provide us a path forward to growth, sort of the what and the why. How should we grow and why? The critical component of our updated strategic plan will be revisiting our mission and goals, our priorities and projects, and our organizational and financial health. So this LRTP really focuses on your service, but there's a whole ecosystem of work that needs to be done that we will take up in our strategic plan. So the next slide is just a recap of the board 2022 workshop. I know directors Testa and Branning weren't on the board during that time, but we did hold a workshop and discussed how the LRTP builds on the short range plan. We talked about the vision for the future, our goals and values that were outlined in our 2006 strategic plan. And really our consultant team did some Mentimeter polling on trade-offs. So the frequency of service versus coverage, sort of those tensions that we see in transit planning. And what we heard from the board during that meeting was there was a lot of discussion about the trade-offs between the frequency of service and the span and coverage. And I think the consensus was we want to follow ridership. There was also discussion about considerations for our different ridership groups, commuters, students, and seniors, and definitely some discussion about traffic around schools, bottlenecks. And so, yeah, we had our workshop and then staff continued to do the analysis. So now I'm gonna jump into the pieces of our long range plan. So first section is document review. So in this section, we looked at all of the regional transit studies and the housing elements for the 3 cities to better understand what is the planned development, what are the planned transit links and infrastructure that we will be expecting to serve in the Tri-Valley. We also looked at general plans, neighborhood specific plans, and the key findings will not surprise you. We need to continue to connect residential and job centers in a quality way, and feeding BART and the future Valley Link stations will be critical in providing those regional connections to places outside of the Tri-Valley. The key inputs to this demographic analysis were the 2020 Census and American Community Survey data. Really, we were looking at 2 sort of indicators of transit demand. One is population-based demand, and this is layering housing and employment density. The second is transit propensity index. So how likely is someone to ride the bus? And what we have learned through years of research is if you look at low income, 0 vehicle households, demographic profiles, and persons with disabilities, those 4 factors tend to when they're all on top of one another, tend to highlight areas where you will see transit ridership or where you're likely to see transit ridership. The next slide, please. So in general, transit demand is generally concentrated in downtowns and along major arterials. I don't think that's surprising. And some of our planned employment centers are not necessarily conveniently located to high capacity transit. So frequent bus service is essential. With relatively low population densities throughout the Tri-Valley, few areas support sub 15-minute frequency. However, some areas without service do have future densities that could support more frequent fixed route service. Now I have a few maps for you since I love maps. So this map is your composite demand. This is your employment and your housing density layered on one another. And you can see the areas in that dark kind of magenta or brown, that's where we will likely see more transit ridership. That's where you've got that right mix of employment and housing. There's concentrations in Pleasanton and Dublin, some in downtown Livermore, and some in South Pleasanton. And also San Ramon does light up. That is outside of our service area, but it is an area that we should think about connecting to or working with County Connection in the future. The next map is your transit propensity. So this is layering in your low income, your non-white populations, your populations with disabilities, and your zero vehicle households. And so again, the darker the color, the higher the density or the higher likelihood that you would see transit ridership. And we don't see as many dark areas on this map. And I think that's a reflection of the affluent nature of the Tri-Valley. We aren't without our low-income folks, but over the last 10 years, we have 11% fewer low-income households in the Tri-Valley. And so I think that is the suburbanization of poverty. People are moving out further and further. And so this does give us an indicator of where we want to put service. And the good news is we have quality service connecting a lot of these areas already. And then I'll move on to your wheels in motion changes. So I know I've talked ad nauseum about the new network that just launched March 23rd. But as a quick reminder, we are reinvesting in coverage throughout the Tri-Valley. We introduced new services in South Livermore and in Central and East Dublin. We modified our base schedule to go to 20 minutes from 15, so that we are seamlessly connecting to BART. And some of the pandemic service that has been suspended, including the Route 11, the 580X, the Route 2, those have been reinstated. And a really exciting piece of this is expanding the weekend service, going from 30 minutes to every 20 minutes on Route 10, going from every hour to every 40 minutes on Route 30. So that's, as we see that off-peak ridership in the midday and on weekends, it's important that we respond with good service. So, without further ado here, almost. Recommendations for this plan were not just built on academic studies. We looked at previous public input that we got from our Wheels in Motion public outreach effort, that's very recent information that we just were able to obtain from the community. Our consultant team did an assessment of current and future market conditions. We looked at regional transportation plans and transit plans, the local municipal plans. And what was important is that we deliver a balanced network that isn't aligned with our JIPA requirements. And so your new long range network does get us into alignment with what our JIPA requires. Again, this is not fiscally constrained. I just want to mention this. This is a blue sky picture. I actually think we could go bluer sky. We could probably put more lines on the map and more frequency. So we will need to, continue to look as we get resources and look for funding opportunities, because we will need additional funding to support future service levels. And again, we needed to get to a balanced service plan that's in line with our JIPA, and we have accomplished that with this new plan. I will note, this plan does not look at school or paratransit services. We look at school routes so often that they stand alone in some ways. So we just wanted the consultant team to focus on the fixed route service. And we also didn't talk about impact of paratransit. You have a very generous paratransit service area whereby you offer paratransit service throughout the Tri-Valley, and it's not tied to when a bus route is operating. And so given that you have this robust paratransit service, noodling on the routes really wouldn't affect your paratransit riders. So in our new network in 2034, we are recommending 4 on-demand or micro-transit zones, and I have a slide to explain what that is here coming up. We have new routes to the Isabel Valley Link Station. We are proposing a new shuttle for the South Front or Midtown Valley Link Station. We are assuming that some of 580 Express service would be replaced by Valley Link. We don't want to compete with our sister transit agencies for riders, and so it is likely that your 580X and your 20X would be rolled into other services once Valley Link starts to operate. We achieve 20-minute service 7 days a week on your 2 rapid lines, which is just, I just love saying that, 20 minutes, 7 days a week. It's lovely. And we have a new regional express service on 680. This route was identified in 2021, looking at the Tri-Valley Hub study that was looking at opportunities to fill the rail gap, the state rail gap, and the Route 680, 680X was recommended. So this would go between the Pleasanton A station and the Martinez Amtrak station, really filling a critical gap in transit service. And this route would be cooperatively operated with us and County Connection. So really just a very awesome opportunity to demonstrate how we can work together to better meet regional travel needs. So I neglected to mention, you have the entire long-range plan in your packet. So you have a lot of data in your packet. Happy to speak to any question you have, but I wanted to just highlight a few maps and a few, some of the results here. So in 2034, we have, as noted, 4 microtransit zones. Those are seen in shades of blue and green. You've got one large one in Dublin. We have one in Hacienda in Pleasanton, one around the Isabel neighborhood station, the Valley Link station, and one around South Front. You see your new 680 route going up to Martinez on the 680, on I-680. Let me see what else I would note. This map doesn't depict frequency, so you can't see that we are boosting frequency on the weekends and for some of our routes. Again, can't drill into it here, but we are realigning both the Route 14 and the 30R to connect to the Isabel station. Both of those routes travel close by, and so we would recommend a realignment to serve that station. So I'll keep going here.
So how many routes total?
Oh, that's a good question. I can get that to you. It's a few, it's about probably the same as we have now, given that some routes we are assuming would be rolled into, would be reallocated, like the 20X and the 580X. But I will get you that information. Okay, next slide, please. So microtransit. Thought it would be helpful to talk to you about what microtransit is. So microtransit is more flexible fixed route service. It acts like a bus in many ways. It has the same fare as a bus, but it is on demand within a zone. And you can use an app or a call center to book a trip in real time. And you would get in real time an estimated time of arrival. So it's similar to booking an Uber or a Lyft. So you say, I want to go from here to here. It comes back and says, your ride is in 12 minutes. It's not door to door necessarily. Typically, you walk to a corner. So it's corner to corner. But it's a good mode for providing coverage in areas where there is low density. It can also serve as first and last mile, although it's a mixed result with the first and last mile. Depends on how much demand you have to meet a train. Productivity is not, it's 2 to 4 passengers an hour. Some systems we see higher productivity, some it's lower. So it's still a mixed bag. It is more productive than your fixed route or your paratransit service. So paratransit typically carries 1 to 1.5 passengers per hour. So it's more productive than paratransit, but it is less productive than fixed route. Fixed route, you're at 11 or 12 passengers an hour. But we still think it is a right fit for our community, and in looking at where we think we would see the most success, we think in Dublin and citywide, or we might look at Dublin having 2 zones. I think that will come as we iterate on the cost of this. Livermore, at the Isabel and the South Front station, I think really to provide off-peak coverage when some of your fixed route buses aren't running as frequent. And then in Hacienda and Pleasanton, we think that is an area that could be ripe for this type of service. The last thing I'll say before we go, Go Tri-Valley, which is your Uber and Lyft discount program, that is a form of microtransit, if we will. It's a geofence service. You have to take your trips within that. I would not be recommending we do both microtransit and Go Tri-Valley. I think we would be competing for riders. So the board, as we see what the results are of our Go Tri-Valley changes, which just took effect today, we may be recommending that Go Tri-Valley gets significantly pared back as microtransit launches. So perhaps Go Tri-Valley is only available after hours or truly to or from a bus stop. So we don't think there's a place for both as Go Tri-Valley exists today.
So for the micro transit, are we seeing, are other cities doing that already? And then what are they? Like what's their outcome?
So it's a mixed bag. Cupertino is doing a service with Via. Samtrans has 2 microtransit zones that just launched about 6 months ago. Sacramento has 8 or 9 zones. AC Transit dabbled with this. They called it their Flex. So did VTA. It exists throughout the state. A lot of agencies are experimenting with it, and it is a mixed bag. I learned when we had a pilot microtransit service in Pacifica, Lindemar area on the coast, and it worked really well, with the exception of Wednesdays when the high school kids all got out and they all tried to get on a microtransit bus to go from the high school to the 7-Eleven. And it was kids are funny. I love kids, I love humans. We neglected to realize that the bus route that we were moving to microtransit on Wednesdays, when they had their early out, that was their transport. And so that was tough because the algorithm can only handle so many trip requests. So we had to Band-Aid that. So it's not always a good first last mile connector. It's really only as good as how many vehicles you have. And you won't get the Uber level of response. I mean, that is just not practical.
So I was remarkably impressed with how financially efficient the Go Tri-Valley was. How does the microtransit compare?
It will be more expensive per passenger, likely than Go Tri-Valley. It will likely have a cheaper cost than fixed route service. These are smaller vehicles. They can, you can see your cutaways, you can have vans, sedans. This came up at our Projects and Services Committee a few months ago. But there are some microtransit providers that are much cheaper. There are some that are more traditional, like your MV. Our current bus route contractor does operate microtransit service. All of the big contractors are doing this now. And so those types of services tend to be a bit more expensive. So it is a mixed bag.
So why? If Go Tri-Valley just keeps coming up as being so cost efficient, why you say we'll cut back if we go this route? If it's more convenient, more cost effective, why do we cut back on Go Tri-Valley to allow for a more expensive, less convenient product?
That's a great question. I think there's a couple things that come to mind, and I would invite Thomas to chime in. Go Tri-Valley, we are not able to count any of those trips for our federal reporting. We don't get credit for any of those trips. So that is the reality of it. The wheelchair accessibility on Go Tri-Valley is, we have not heard any complaints, but it is something that I'm watching because if you look at Uber, we have wheelchair vehicles in our service area, but we would have 100% ADA accessible fleet here with microtransit, and microtransit could be another opportunity to move your paratransit customers this is a same day service that this could offer them. And paratransit, as you know, is the most expensive service that we offer. This would not be duplication of paratransit service, but it could meaningfully shift people who want to do same-day travel within Dublin, for example. They could book a microtransit trip. It would be cheaper for them, and it would be likely cheaper, for LAVTA compared to a paratransit trip.
Okay.
And Thomas, do you have any other insights,
Yeah.
as to why transit?
Yes, one of the things that we found in other places we worked is that, there's a limit, where the cost, really this is a question of where some of the cost curves are in terms of what becomes more effective in one place versus another. For the Uber and Lyft subsidies, there's a definite, for each incremental new passenger, there's an associated cost associated, with that. And the fare integration with the existing fares isn't quite there. If we wanted to make sure that we positioned Valley Link in particular, and the 3 new on-demand zones are all associated with Valley Link stations, we want to make sure that it has an integrated fare. It has the capacity when a train comes in to take care of 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, however many passengers it might be, to distribute from Mountain House, for instance, to some of the jobs in Livermore or in Pleasanton, and vice versa, to get folks coming from the rest of the Bay Area to those areas as well. So we wanted to make sure that there was the capacity to have that, and the understanding that this is through the transit agency. So the standard fare applies, standard rules apply, standard accessibility applies. And so, that's why we looked at going beyond the partnership with Uber and Lyft, specifically with the tie-ins to the new Valley Link, to ensure that potential customers and expected customers would have the right type of service that they could understand that their trip planning software would let them know is there. I don't know if that answered your question or not, but that was the thought process behind it.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? There is a cost difference, but as we get more passengers on microtransit, that there comes a point where they cross, correct?
Yeah.
And some of our speculation on the Uber and Lyft is that these are customers that were never gonna be transit customers. We are subsidizing trips that they were gonna take anyway, that we're competing with ourselves. We're basically giving money to customers that were never gonna be transit customers. And that's not necessarily in the best interest of the agency, whereas the microtransit customers would be more likely to be transit customers if we were able to get fixed route service to them on the regular. And so this is a way to make that balance. And if we're meeting the BART trains, if we're meeting the Valley Link trains, and if there's a way that we can have, I would love to be able to see those microtransits be in when nobody's calling, they're in a hop on, hop off circulator route that then they can deviate from within those
In the zone.
zones. And then we're picking up additional riders and,
It's just like when you go to the airport and you're constantly picking up
Right.
folks at the airport and taking them to their hotels or to the rental car places.
Exactly.
It happens.
exactly.
Okay,
Are you
so,
done with your,
no, go ahead.
okay, she has a few more slides. I just wanted to get through their presentation.
So first of all, competing with ourselves, we're serving the public. So the next is, if, no, I'll save that for later. That's good.
Okay, a few more slides, I'm sorry, I'll speak faster, just highlighting the new routes, I've already mentioned them to you. Your 680X would run between Pleasanton Ace, BART Station, stop at the San Ramon, Park and Ride, Walnut Creek BART, and the Martinez Amtrak. This is envisioned to be a cooperative operation with County Connection. We've also received TIRCIP Cycle 5 funding for infrastructure to support this service to be operated with hydrogen buses. So this is a hugely important service, and we're very thankful to the state for the TIRCIP funding. We have a Lab Valley Link connector, so looking at a direct connection between the Lab and the South Front Valley Link station. Looking at a Springtown Valley Link connector, so again, connecting the residents of Springtown with the South Front Valley Link station. Route 4 in Dublin, which just launched 10 days ago or so, we would look at improving that to 20-minute peak service and running 7 days a week. We're already getting comments for running that route on Sundays, so yay there, that's great. And again, the 10R would run Sundays every 20 minutes, which would make the 10R 20 minutes, 7 days a week, which is great. Your 14 would deviate to the Isabel station and improve service. Your 14 that's a route that is it carries a lot of people. And so we definitely want to give that route enough frequency. And then your 30R would deviate to the Isabel Valley Link station from the north side, connecting through the Isabel plan development. And we would be improving service to every 20 minutes. 7 days a week on your 30. So your 2034 network is fully integrated with the regional rail line, SPART, Valley Link, and also ACE. I'll mention ACE. It plans for additional service in high growth areas, better regional connections, enhanced coverage. There are some data points in the long range plan about how many more jobs would be within a quarter mile of a frequent bus line. And improved weekend service and weekday service, really with our goal of 20-minute, 7-day-a-week rapid service. Near-term opportunities. So this is also an idea. As we see how the fixed route services in Dublin, particularly the 4 and the 2, perform, because they were lower performing 8 years ago. And so if we see that ridership is just not solidifying, we could recommend a microtransit zone as a near-term solution to replace one of the unproductive fixed routes. So I just think that is on our mind. So that's something we're going to watch closely. We would look to implement your pilot 680 service as funding is identified, but I think we would be excited to start that in the next few years. When Emerald High School is fully at capacity, that will give us some more vehicles. So we expect to have a few more buses. We can address crowded school routes. We can address areas where we see we need more frequency. We have so much going on regionally that is mapping and wayfinding, fare integration, a regional transit network manager. So that's my job, to navigate all of that work coming out of MTC. Launching our new strategic plan update this summer, and that really will be a wonderful opportunity to weigh in on all of the goals and priorities for LAVTA, including how important is ridership, how important is being cost effective. And I think that's a conversation that's long overdue, and that's a conversation that has changed since the pandemic, in my opinion. And last but not least, we just learned we'll have a new short range transit plan that will be due next summer, which is exciting. Also, it means we have another opportunity to better refine some of these recommendations in the near term. The short range plan will be cost constrained, again, giving you a more refined 3 to 5 year picture. And that concludes our presentation. I am happy to take questions.
Okay, so one of the reasons cited for the micro transit over the Go Tri-Valley was we don't get credit. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that doesn't seem reasonable. It seems like we should be able to open up that discussion to get credit.
I might
Serving the public.
I agree with you. I'm gonna, I might call on Tamara here or Jennifer if you have any input here, but my understanding based on the National Transit Database, which is our repository for all of our data, they don't have a category to collect these types of trips. They have a category for your microtransit type demand response service. But these trips that we're providing, and we're providing 4,000 to 5,000 a month, they don't have a box to go into at the National Transit Database. That is my understanding. And Tamara, do you know anything more or less than?
That's part of it, because some agencies have tried doing this. The biggest issue is not being able to get the necessary information from Uber and Lyft to do those reports. So we don't get credit for the miles, and by not getting credit for the miles, we don't receive that back from federal funding.
Yeah,
Is it because it's a for-profit agency?
they have been inconsistent with the data that they share, so it
And
has
they
improved.
probably don't want to because it's more,
Yeah, they don't,
it's more of a kind of like, what are they getting out of it?
right.
Okay, so that's so outdated. And what we're talking about having, it was in my head just a second ago, lobbyist.
Yes.
This is our first, chore for our lobbyist because this needs to change.
And I have a meeting scheduled with the
I
FTA.
think that's the second one.
This
The
would be
first one,
the second,
10:31.
yeah.
Yes. I'll concede that.
Thank you for this comment. We have a meeting, so I'm going to be going to DC on Sunday for the LAVTA Legislative Conference. We have a meeting with the FTA and the NTD to talk about our 1C ride paratransit program, because we also don't have a box for that. So, anywho, I will see how I can, have an offline conversation with the NTD and FTA reps. And yes, we will speak with our lobbyists about it.
Okay, thank you. The other, thing that, coming across when you were talking, demographic and, what was it, propensity index, no mention of senior ridership. And again, paratransit is the general, for but not exclusively, so.
No, that's a good point. Thomas, can you speak to incorporating seniors in transit propensity?
Yes, absolutely. The transit propensity map is primarily designed for fixed route transit propensity. And for fixed route transit, if you look at the overall amount of ridership that's currently on your service right now, it's around 10%. I mean, it's not, seniors are not the primary market for your fixed route services. They are a market, but they're not the primary market, and they're not the growth market. It's paratransit, looking at paratransit is where seniors become much, much more important, and they comprise a much larger percentage of the overall users. And, that's when we look at where's the demand. If we look at where's paratransit demand going to be, we're going to include seniors as a part of our analysis. If we look at, what's fixed route transit, demand going to be, we typically exclude transit out of there. We exclude seniors out of there because seniors do not comprise a large user group for fixed route transit.
Right, okay. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from our Zoom folks? Not seeing any. Oh, go ahead. Mayor Brown?
A couple of questions, thank you. I was gonna get Supervisor a chance to go first. Chris, you got a couple first clarifying questions. You stated there's 11% fewer low-income residents. What was that a window of time? Was that a 10 years?
All the 10-year census, that is included in I'll find the page number, but it was.
You don't need to. I'm surprised that the number has dropped 11% over the census. So just a clarifying question. And then when we look at the dots on the map, you like maps, so you're looking at heat maps. Are those pickups or drop-offs? So when we see the density, is that pickup or drop-off? Because if we are seeing ridership, let's say it should be going to BART, that would be a drop-off, not a pickup.
These are not ridership maps, Director Brown. This is just where housing is and where the jobs are. So we could do a pickup map or transit boardings and alignings map, and I can bring that back to projects and services if you're curious. But yeah, this is just where the jobs and housing are located.
It'd be very interesting to overlay them to see if we really are reaching the goals that we want. And not that I'm trying to create more work, but are we achieving the goals we want? And are these riders maybe going to the grocery store, not to work? It helps to target your marketing to pick up more riders. Next question. I know this is not school students, so we'll just leave Sunol off, but it's wonderful that we focus on 680 North. But as a person who commuted south for years, there is no train, the ACE train, but it goes to Santa Clara. in terms of going to Milpitas and Fremont, has it been considered, because we're looking at a 10-year range, to have a bus that would go south? We're looking at adding an express lane south for one direction. But to be able to, my question, I guess, is, has it ever been studied? Because I see a freeway filled daily with people going south to work. And there are no BART, there's no train other than ACE that goes that route.
Thank you so much for that comment. You are absolutely correct. It is something we mentioned in the long range plan that should be further explored. I think we do have an opportunity to connect 680 South once the express lanes are constructed. We don't have a route that's recommended because we haven't done that study and analysis yet, but it is something I would recommend we do in the near future.
The question that there's even more demand going south than going north. But I realize we have a history with our route going north, it's attached to the BART train and so forth in the north. But it seems that everybody in transit sort of ignores it for multi-ridership or multimodal. And so you just end up with individual vehicles in their cars. Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Halbert?
Yeah, so I had the same question. Thank you, Mayor Brown, for raising that. My point being also to add on to the conversation, I believe there are already multiple corporate buses that do this. So maybe a Genentech bus or a Google bus or whatever. And so it just seems to me that there is that demand. Whether we can service that better than the corporation itself, I don't know. I don't know if they're running full buses or whatnot. And I don't, anyway, it's just something to think about, because there is a, I don't even know, but it'd be good to find out how many people do that. You know, we all hope that eventually those companies will recognize that their talent lives here and move corporate offices here of some kind, maybe a division or something. But anyway, so that people don't have to commute that far in a bus. But that's something to think about. That was my my only question. I do think it's going to be very innovative to be thinking about the on-demand service in the 4 areas. I like that. Be interested to find out whenever we do things like that. You know, best in class practice, what other agencies have done. Find an example where they've done that and copy it if possible. See if we are in the same, you know, general parameters as what others have done. But I think, as we all know, I'm willing to test and pilot things, and so let's do it. Thank you.
I had something just to add to what the supervisor said. Okay.
Yeah, the easy part about Google buses, Genentech buses, all those kinds of things is they have a natural drop-off point. They're going to their corporate headquarters, they're going to their Google office. I would love to see a study and who we can partner with going down 680, but going down 680, the getting on here in the Tri-Valley is easy, right? Coming home is easy, but what's on the other end, right? We all know getting on 680 and going down 680 is where everybody's going, but everybody's getting off someplace else on the other end. So are we going to Warm Springs? Are we going to Mountain View? Are we going to Cupertino? Where are we going on the other end? And I think that's the challenge. And so we need to be mindful that, you know, while the workers all live here, they all work in really widely different areas. So are we talking about going to Fremont, or are we talking about going all the way into Santa Clara and that area? So who's our partner on the other end? Like, we have a natural partner going up 680 with County Connection, but who are we partnering with on the other end? Because if we're running buses down that way, wouldn't it be nice if we had a partner that was running buses coming this way? So, you know, we can double the manpower. So I
It
would
would
love
probably be AC Transit, which is also in Alameda County, in Sunnyvale, in Fremont rather, anyway. So anyway, the great question. Those would be great questions to answer. Yep.
There might be more than one partner too, if we,
Yeah.
could have some
Mhm.
natural drop-off points.
Mhm.
So, that was my comment on that. And then, I love the idea of, some of these innovative things, to help with our fixed route service. And as we get new buses and as we realign our school service, figuring out where we can use that extra capacity in ways that are, yes, adding frequency, but also perhaps serving areas that we are not serving now. And I know that we'll be doing this as we implement this 10-year blue sky plan, but watching the BART trends and watching nobody predicted the work from home, 180 degrees, but seeing, how we are meeting changing working patterns going forward. I'm excited to see what we can do. Thank you.
I just had an interesting factoid to answer. I think a question I heard, and that is, I remember a not too long ago presentation by our traffic engineer regarding the buses that pick up workers at the fairgrounds and take them to the Silicon Valley. Our traffic engineer estimated that it was more than 600 riders, because based on the cars that were parked.
Yeah, they pick up right down here. We have a double decker.
So 600 from the fairgrounds alone on top of other
Yeah.
locations. I mean, that's huge.
It is huge.
And just add a historical note, we used to run a service down 680 along like 15 years
I
ago.
remember
I don't know what the result was, but
Yeah.
maybe I'm looking where that.
Yeah.
went.
Be back into the next 80.
There's a small things, on the micro transit. Personally, my opinion is that our main goal is or not our main goal, but one of our main goals is to take cars off the road, not to subsidize private vehicles. So micro transit, if it is more efficient, in removing vehicles on the road, I think that is a valued goal as part of the project. And then I've looked at this map a dozen times. It's very small though. And I think.
Not by design, I'm sorry.
I think I just noticed looking at it this time, I believe it misses downtown Livermore, which would be a major, it hits the north end. I'm not positive because the map is so small, but I think it hits the north end. It would actually hit downtown.
What route?
The microtransit, the west microtransit.
Okay, we can,
So just extending it 2 blocks further south, I
Yeah.
think, would be.
all of this will get better defined with all the,
Yeah.
they will tell us.
I figure it's coming back with something.
Absolutely, 100, so.
So I have another question based on, Director Branning's comments. Perhaps I've missed the mission statement. I think I asked not too long ago. Because is it to take vehicles off the road? And by the way, when you have a big bus that's only got 2 people in it, that is not a beneficial, environmentally beneficial alternative anyway. But is that the mission or the goal, is to take vehicles off the road?
I don't have our mission in front of me. It is a long-winded mission. It is to provide equitable access throughout the Tri-Valley community.
There you go, access.
It's access,
Is,
so,
my understanding, serving the public and access.
yeah, and an equitable and environmentally friendly. I can come back with that. I just don't have it up top of mind. I just know it was long.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think when we look at our mission statement, it's more also of the fact is being able to help people get off the road that maybe have no other means though too, or do have means. And so I think when we look at the Tri-Valley, the Go Tri-Valley, that it's costing us more money to do that versus potentially doing the microtransit. And I think the more the microtransit becomes a little bit more popular and you're advertising it more, that you will finally hit the point where it's more beneficial than it is costing you more money. Because we've always, ever since I've been on LAVTA, which has been years, we've always tried to say, what's the last mile? And this is something picking up last mile, even though we did have our SAV that Contra Costa just got an award for, even though we had ours first, at the EDA. That was something that obviously it was great to start it, but then eventually it wasn't feasible because it has to go over a certain amount of miles per hour. on the road. And so, do we keep looking for something? Is it the micro transit that ends up being more efficient? I'm not sure. I think within time, we'll be able to tell a lot better, but we're also still, as much as all the transit agencies are still trying to recover, we're trying to recover up to pre-COVID.
Oh, yeah.
The only ones I think that right now are doing really well is like AC Transit,
Hey,
right?
they're still below, the best one is Smart and Marin Transit up in the North Bay. They are at, I think, 98% of pre-COVID. I don't know how we compare to AC. BART's at, 40 and.
But when you're in
We're
Oklahoma,
strong.
I mean, Supervisor and I were just in Oklahoma last Thursday and we're like AC Transit and their buses, they're not completely full.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot more people that utilize them.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's all within time. Not seeing any other questions, I will go ahead and ask if there's any public comment.
I did not receive any public comment.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board, with any other deliberation, if not.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Vice Chair Branning,
Aye.
Director Brown,
Aye.
Director Halbert,
Aye.
Chancellor Josie,
Aye.
Director King is absent, Director Testa,
Aye.
and Chair Hernandez.
Aye.
Motion passes.
We'll go along, to item number 7, which is our executive director's report.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Starting it off with ridership, this is the month of February that I'll report on. So this is still before our new network change. But we are still seeing a year-over-year increase. I love to see that this last February, we carried 5,300 average rider, 5,300 riders on an average weekday compared to 4,500 a year ago. So that's a great improvement. That I believe is in part to us restoring the 10R to frequent service, which we did in April of last year. The weekend ridership trend has started to plateau, although we are curiously awaiting the results of our new network. I was hoping to have some data for you today. I do not have anything tangible other than we know there's some ridership on the 4 and the 2. But since we are running fare free, our operators aren't necessarily diligently counting riders as they normally would. And so we will be closely watching, and you'll get your first full month of ridership at your June meeting, but I will share anything with you at our May meeting. I know we are hearing positive comments, though, and already asking for more service on Sundays, so. And speaking of our launch, we did it. We launched first big network change in 7 years. Everyone behind me did an amazing job, and I think that's just, you have to give kudos. I didn't do much and they did it all. We've got ads in our local papers. You can see Tony's still there. We got Tony McCauley's. Is that him? Yeah. And this is Candace from Rail. So she's a superstar. And we are still promoting our free ride. You can take that. So these are great pictures. So we're really pleased. Staff did a great job. We're getting the word out. Our operators know they're being our best ambassadors. And yeah, our news releases were picked up, and we're actually getting a prominent story in the LAVTA mobility publication that they print and hand to every conference attendee at their conference in Portland. So super excited about that. And you have some pictures in your packet. We were at the St. Patrick's Day Festival. That was so fun. Everybody loves a spinning wheel. If you ever want anybody to come to your table, a prize wheel is the way to do it. So we resurrected our prize wheel, and that was super fun. We provided free fares to on the 30R. We carried several hundred people, which is great. And then we just rolled right into Transit Worker Appreciation Day, which was on March 18th. We had tacos, and every employee here got a Sherpa blanket. We have Sherpa blankets for you all, for our board members, so please pick one up on your way out. They're under $10, so you don't need to claim them on your Form 700. And they're nice and cozy, right? It's time for summer. So moving on, it is TAC membership recruitment time. So we are recruiting members for our Tri-Valley Accessible Advisory Committee. We need members from all of the cities as well as the county and social services. We have a press release issued. I've been doing some targeted outreach to community members that I think would be a good fit. I've received 2 positive responses. I would encourage you to share this recruitment with your networks. And if you have anyone you want me to try to recruit, please just send their name my way, and I will do my best. Any questions on projects and services? Nope, not seeing it. Okay, now, finance and admin. I wanted to spend some time talking to you today about SB 1031. And I'm gonna give you a little overview of what is in the legislation and talk to you about what's coming next. And then I'm going to ask Jennifer Yeamans to come and talk to you about how your legislative program that was approved in February, what that says, and how we might use that to form our position on this bill. So on March 18th, Transit Worker Appreciation Day, Senator Scott Wiener and Aisha Wahab from Fremont introduced SB 1031. This is a replacement bill being led by Senator Wiener and replaces SB 925, which was sponsored by MTC. And then SB 397, which was the Wahab, every transit agency must consolidate into one Bay Area transit agency. So this new bill is important in that it does contain the enabling legislation for MTC to put a measure on the ballot in 2026 or later. But it also has a lot more in it. It requires a floor of 750 million to be spent on transit operations, to be distributed on a basis that is unknown. So there's a chunk of change that's, being required to spend on transit operations, but we don't know the methodology. It gives MTC control over any new funds raised if there is a measure that is successful, but it also gives MTC increased authority over existing funds that the transit agencies receive. It requires a study, so this is the consolidation component. It requires a study of the Bay Area transit operators to be completed by 2026. So a study to look at the benefits of consolidating the Bay Area transit operators. And then it requires CalSTA, the state, to develop a plan to implement these study recommendations by January 2027. And there is no funding source identified for this study. So the MTC commissioners received a presentation or an informational update at their meeting last week, and they had some comments. The next big step for this bill is to go before the joint MTC ABAG legislation committee, which is April 12th. And at that meeting, they will consider staff's recommendations for a position on the bill, as well as any amendments. So what we're waiting on is the amendments for this bill. This bill is scheduled to be heard at the Senate Transportation Committee, April 23rd, and the Senate Revenue and Taxation Committee on April 24th. We are working very closely with our East Bay Transit Coalition lobbyists, as well as our coalition partners to track this legislation and to really coalesce comments. We do think a position will be important to take, and given that things are moving quickly, and we won't have a board meeting in between now and the time that this goes to the first round of committees. I will confer with the chair on our position once we see the amendments and we can digest them. So Mrs. Yeamans, do you mind joining me and sharing a bit about our Ledge program?
Sure. So there's a lot going on here, and it is the word many people use to describe what's going on is dynamic. So keep that in mind, because what we're talking about today is not what we're going to be talking about a month from now. So just kind of big picture. Let's just focus on what's in front of us. I want to just let you know as a body, because there's likely, maybe next month, we would have a position for the board to, or other language in consultation with the coalition lobbyists or other, partners. In the meantime, I think this agency and this board foresaw a lot of these issues in February when you adopted the legislative program. So the three things I just want you to keep in mind are, one, on the consolidation matter, which was not contemplated as a single bill then. Your ledge program is that LAVTA should oppose efforts to mandate consolidation of either East-based law operators or LAVTA and any other. So that's an oppose that's already in our program. Another piece in terms of the revenue measure, the ledge program currently has LAVTA, that LAVTA should monitor, support, oppose, or seek amendments as may be necessary and desirable in the development of authorizing legislation, because all that matters is the details, right? All that matters is the details. There are some programs that we would support, and there are some programs that we would oppose. So that's the full, the full portal of options is open on the authorizing legislation for the revenue measure. And then finally on the, however you want to call it, the transformation task force, the blue ribbon, the network manager, but all of the sort of technical stuff that MTC might take more management of. LAVTA's current position is that we should monitor and engage with MTC and other transit operators on this, including basically using our operating funding to manage our system, right? And there would be presumably some takedown at a high level that's taking money away from our ability to operate service just to add an extra layer of management. And so there's kind of another bill that's currently that's originated in the assembly that has kind of got an alternative view of this, but that would mandate that the state, where any mandated local program is contemplated for any of this, that the state has to identify funding at a state level to do it, as opposed to coming from our local resources. So I just wanted to share with you those items from our existing legislative program, because we did come to consensus on that already. And we just don't know in what form kind of those three big items are going to take. The bill as it's currently written includes a consolidation piece that it seems impossible LAVTA could support as it is. So we will watch carefully what happens in those policy committees. It is my understanding that the bill will certainly be amended substantially before it goes to the Senate Appropriations Committee in mid-May. So again, I think there's going to be an opportunity for daylighting in early May on some probably substantially updated language. We just don't yet know what. In the meantime, it is suggested that when possible, elected officials from transit agency boards be ready to meet with our state legislators, especially where you have relationships that can be helpful to this process. And so please speak to Christy and me about that. We certainly have some plans underway in that department, and would love to include you if you feel you have relationships that would benefit LAVTA's current needs and strategies. So I'll just stop there. Like I said, there's a lot going on and everybody's got a different perspective, but I just wanted to share kind of what's in our current board policy on this.
And before we open it up for some comments just specific to this, AB 1837 Pappen was the bill. I think it's a counter proposal to the WAHOG bill, and it codifies the current Regional Network Management Council, which is existing at the MTC level, codifies that in the state, and better supports transit coordination and not consolidation. And so that will go before the Assembly Transportation Committee on April 14th. So we are watching all of these. And I'm happy to take any comments.
There's usually a special interest group behind bills like this. Where is this coming from? All of a sudden, or is it all of a sudden that there are so many? And we know our legislators don't write their bills. They are handed to them by a special interest in. So where is this coming from?
So this, do you want to answer that or?
Well, I wasn't there when, I wasn't in the room where it happened, so
Yeah.
I'll claim all plausible deniability. I mean, advocates have been working, I think, in this under the banner of seamless, transit for a long time, but I don't wanna ID them, because like I said, I'm not party to those discussions, but there's certainly a lot of advocates and many stakeholders interested in, what's at stake here. I mean, I think even MTC is a bit surprised that they are no longer, in the passenger seat of Senator Weiner's bill, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the commission discussion was, all about last week, so.
And there
All
has
we can
been
do
a
is
study,
speak to our own legislators, I'm sorry.
there has been a study done already.
Yeah.
Many years ago, many
Yeah.
years ago, and
Many.
it's probably, we don't know what happened.
So Seamless Bay Area is one of the main advocacy groups that has done a good job of articulating that, there are challenges in the Bay Area system. And this is not the first bill. I believe there was a bill last year. And yes, to Chair Hernandez's point, there was a consolidation study done in 2007. There may have been one done in 1987. And I think the big barrier with implementing is labor. You have different labor contracts, you have different, costs, and so yeah.
Labor is usually behind most bills, yeah, okay.
Well, I don't know,
Labor's not behind this bill.
Yeah.
That was the reason it couldn't, there was some consolidation, I think, of ferry operators, back in, this is 30 years ago, but no, the labor's not behind SB 1031, absolutely not.
Yeah, and just to add, I mean, regardless of support for the current legislation, there is a laundry list of labor-related laws and regulations that govern transit operations that come with any implementation efforts of bills like this, regardless of who supports them now. They're automatic, they're in existing legislation rules. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it's exciting. Any other comments on 1031? Any from? So moving on to grant season. So, it's grant season and I'm so pleased that last week Alameda CTC's PAPCO recommended the approval of our $600,000 application. So I want to thank in advance our commissioners on ACTC for your support of that grant allocation. This will help us to develop our new Wheels Access program. So we are looking at branding sort of all of our services for seniors and persons with disabilities into an umbrella Wheels Access program. That's our Director of Operations, Mike Tobin's idea. So I want to give him kudos for that. And the funding also covers mobility management and travel training, and extends and expands our popular parataxi program. So this is the taxi subsidy that paratransit customers receive. So if they want to book a same-day ride, they can call up an approved taxi company or use Uber and Lyft, and they can get 85%. They can get reimbursed for 85% of the fare, up to $20. And this grant actually increases that to $30. So that was well received by our TAC, and that's a popular program. And we are now getting ready to submit our no emissions grant. So the notice of funding opportunity was released, and there's up to $1.5 billion in discretionary funding. So we are working with an experienced grant writing team, CTE, which is the Center for Transportation and the Environment, on this year's application to accelerate our deployment of zero emissions fleet and include our facility needs. So we are reading the tea leaves, if you will, with the notice of funding availability. And given that the FTA has indicated it will prioritize projects that advance the Biden administration's workforce development priorities, we are exploring all options. With locally based partnerships, the California Transit Training Consortium. I have a meeting with Las Positas College. So we are really excited about putting forth a very robust grant ask that would come with a significant chunk of change for workforce development. And we think that could be key in our successful application. So very excited about that. And on March 13th, CalSTA released the TERSIP guidelines. And so those will get finalized here shortly and be released April 23rd. Applications will be expected in July. So we are busy writing grants and moving forward there. We've got some upcoming conferences. So this Sunday, the general managers, well, many general managers, but the East Bay Coalition general managers and our chairs will be traveling to DC for the LAVTA Legislative Conference. We have meetings scheduled with our congressional leaders and the FTA. And I think that should be a successful and fun trip. I brought my eclipse glasses so we can step out during our meeting on Tuesday to see the eclipse. And the last conference in April is the LAVTA International Rodeo and Mobility Conference. So we are sending Evelyn, our winner. She's going to be competing on that Sunday. A few staff members will be going up there to cheer her on and then attend the conference. It's in Portland, so. And last, I was named, or I was selected to serve on the 2024 California Transit Association Small Operators Committee, and Mike Tobin was selected to serve on the Operations Committee. So we will be better connected with our partners at CTA and have more meetings to attend. And then lastly, in your packet, you have your board statistics. I don't think there's anything noteworthy to point out, although I welcome your comments and questions. My eyes go right to Go Tri-Valley every time, and it is less than January, but there were 2 less days in February. So we shall see. Today is the day that the program makes the change to 10 cap, so we'll be watching that very closely.
I have a quick question on that, if I might. How did we advertise the change, and how successful do we think we were in reaching the people who gonna bump up against that cap?
So the feedback from our project partners, Uber and Lyft, was that if we sent out an alert, it might actually draw more attention to the program. And so we are, I don't want to say silently implementing it, but it is just going to become a cap for the current users. We have language on our website. And so, yeah, at the advice of our project partners, they thought a splashy, hey, this is gonna be changing, could just draw more attention to the program.
Wouldn't it be reasonable that, I mean, is it easy to track how many, if somebody's already got 5 trips, to make them aware? You are aware that there is a limit of 10 at this point?
I can check on that.
Yeah.
That might be something we can.
Well, also to know ahead of time, who are those users that regularly exceed those caps? And I mean, I wouldn't want to send a broadcast message, but to let those people know that if they are taking this to work every single day, and by April 10th, they're gonna not be able to take this to work every day, or the grocery store, wherever they're going. I think that a heads up to those particular people would probably be in order.
Okay, we might be able to do that.
And when it doesn't work, do they get a message that they hit a cap?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, I would hate for somebody to,
Well, I think the most important part is to find out, I think this has been discussed before, is it vulnerable populations that are utilizing it and using it to benefit because they really need it versus a person in their car sitting in the garage.
Wait, but I thought we said we weren't, did we decide that we were, that there was an appeal or an opportunity if they're exceeding the number?
We decided based on the feedback of this board that we weren't going to pursue an exemption at this point.
But I think in the future, if that's the way we're gonna go, whether we eliminate or bring it down to a certain amount of dollar amount, who gets it?
Because I mean, yeah. People with disabilities and seniors and people who genuinely, that changes their quality of life, their access. I would hope that we would find a way to accommodate them.
And I absolutely, and our paratransit users would also still be eligible for the taxi program, which, so they do double dip, which is perfectly fine. They get half their fare up to $5 off, and then they get their 85% covered by LAVTA. So, that would still be available. That doesn't have a trip cap, but it does have a dollar amount cap, per month.
Okay, any matters initiated by the board of directors? Not seeing any, then we will go ahead, our next meeting will be on May 6th of this year, and so we will adjourn at 5:21.
Thank you all.
Thank you.